All right, so are you ready to dive into some serious communication secrets?
Oh, I'm always ready for that. Communication is
Right.
power, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today with this deep dive into how to talk to anyone. It's this fantastic book by Leo Lowndes, packed with techniques to seriously boost your communication game.
I love that book. It's amazing. Just chock full of practical advice backed by psychology and tons of real-life examples.
Yeah, it really helps you understand not just what to do, but why it works.
hmm
So let's jump right in because Lowndes starts with some pretty fascinating stuff about first impressions and
Oh, yeah, those first few seconds are everything, right?
seriously. And she has this technique called the flooding smile. That's kind of counterintuitive.
Oh, yeah, tell me about that one.
So you know how most people think you should like smile instantly when you meet someone?
Yeah, got to be quick, got to be bright.
Right, exactly. But Lowndes actually suggests something totally different. Like she says, pause for a second.
Why, really?
Yeah, like really take the person in and then let this warm, genuine smile spread across your face.
So it's more about reacting to the person, not just putting on this automatic smile.
Exactly. It's like saying, I'm smiling because I'm genuinely happy to meet you, not just like, oh, hi, nice to meet you.
Oh, I get it, because it's like you're actually seeing them, not just going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels way more sincere and creates this real connection.
And that makes a huge difference.
Okay, so we've got the smile down, but what about eye contact? This is where I always get a little like, oh.
I know, right? It's like, how long is too long? How short is weird?
Exactly. But Lowndes has this technique for that too, and it's called sticky eyes.
Sticky eyes. That sounds a little intense.
I know, right? But it's actually pretty simple.
Okay, tell me more.
So basically, you maintain eye contact even after the other person has finished speaking.
What? Really? So they're done talking and you just keep staring at them?
Not staring, but you break contact slowly and reluctantly, almost as if your eyes are kind of glued to theirs for a second.
Okay, so it's more about being the last one to break the gaze.
Yeah, and it might sound weird, but it actually makes the other person feel really valued.
Because it's like you're really hanging on to their every word.
Exactly. And Lowndes actually tells this story about a salesperson who used sticky eyes and saw his sales go way up.
Oh, wow, that's powerful.
Seriously, people just felt more connected to him because he was really present with them.
That's fascinating. I'm gonna have to try that one.
You should. And speaking of presence, what about our overall posture? Like, how do we project confidence and make a strong impression just by how we stand or sit?
Posture is huge. It's like the first thing people notice even before you say a word.
Totally, but how do you get it right? It's not always obvious.
Well, Lowndes uses this really interesting analogy. She tells you to imagine yourself as an acrobat about to do some crazy feat.
An acrobat. Okay, I'm picturing it.
Like, picture yourself biting onto this imaginary leather bit hanging from the ceiling, and you're about to swing into action.
Okay, got it.
That's the feeling you want. Head up, back straight, shoulders relaxed.
Oh, I can feel myself sitting up straighter already.
It's amazing how just thinking about it can change how you hold yourself.
Totally. But why is posture so important? Like, beyond just looking good?
Well, it's a visual cue for confidence and success, even before you've said a word.
Oh, that makes sense. Because someone slumped over might seem unsure of themselves.
Exactly. While someone standing tall projects an air of competence and authority.
So it's about taking up space and really owning your presence.
Precisely. And the crazy thing is, good posture can even boost your own confidence, too.
Really. It works both ways.
Yeah, there's actual research on it. It can reduce stress and help you feel more in control.
Wow, so it's a win-win. You feel better and you project this amazing image to the world.
Now that's the power of nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the actual words we use. Lowndes has some incredible insights on that, too. From mastering small talk to having those deeper, more meaningful conversations.
Yeah, and that's something I think a lot of people struggle with, so I'm really curious to hear what she has to say.
Oh, she's got some amazing tips and techniques.
Yeah.
It's all about being engaging and authentic, even when talking about the most mundane stuff.
Okay, so let's dive into that because small talk can feel so awkward sometimes. Like, how do you make it less painful and actually use it to build a connection?
Well, one of the things Lowndes emphasizes is that the content of small talk actually matters less than the mood and the delivery.
Wait, really? So it's not about finding the perfect topic?
Not necessarily. You could be talking about the weather, but if you inject passion and enthusiasm into it, you'll come across as captivating.
Oh, I love that. It's about being genuinely interested and engaged even in those everyday conversations.
Exactly. And she calls it prosaic with passion. which I think is brilliant.
That's a great way to put it. But what if you're not naturally like that? What if you're more of an introvert?
Lowndes has a fantastic technique for that too, and it's called always wear a what's it.
Always wear a what's it?
Hmm.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so basically, you carry or wear something unusual, something that serves as a conversation starter. It could be a unique piece of jewelry, a cool pin, even a book with an eye-catching title.
Oh, I see. It's like having this built-in conversation piece that takes the pressure off trying to come up with a clever opening line.
Exactly. People will naturally comment on your what's it, and then bam, you've got a conversation going.
That's brilliant. And Lowndes actually used this technique herself at a conference and had some amazing conversations because of it.
It's those little things that can make such a big difference.
Totally. It's about being memorable and approachable. And once you've mastered that small talk, Lowndes has some fascinating techniques for taking those conversations deeper and making them more meaningful.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really interesting. We'll dive into that in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good. Can't wait.
So we've talked about nailing that first impression, the smile, the eye contact, the posture.
Yeah, we've got all those nonverbal cues down.
But now, how do you keep a conversation going? How do you actually connect with someone once you've got their attention?
Yeah, because small talk only gets you so far, right?
Exactly. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking they need to be amazing talkers.
Oh, interesting. So it's not about being witty or charming or having all the right things to say.
Not necessarily. Lowndes argues that being a great conversationalist is actually more about being a great listener.
Oh, that makes sense. But I think a lot of people would say, hey, I'm a good listener.
Right. We all think we are. But truly listening is a skill, and it takes practice.
Okay, so how do we get better at it? What are some specific techniques?
Well, Lowndes suggests a technique called parroting. And it might sound a little funny, but it's incredibly effective.
Parroting. Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more about that.
So it involves repeating key words or phrases that your conversation partner uses. Not like you're mocking them or anything.
Oh, right, right. Like I wouldn't want to sound like a broken record.
Exactly. It's more subtle than that. It's about reflecting back what you've heard to show that you're paying attention.
So if someone says, I'm really stressed about this project, I might say, it sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed with everything going on.
Perfect. You're not just agreeing, you're really acknowledging their feelings.
And that makes them feel heard and understood.
Yes. And from a psychological standpoint, it creates a sense of connection and rapport. When we feel like someone gets us, we naturally open up more.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you're building this bridge of understanding between you.
And Lowndes even tells this funny story about how she accidentally got a super long explanation about some musical just by using parroting.
Oh, really? Just by repeating a few words?
Yeah. The person felt so validated and encouraged that they just kept talking. It was like she unlocked this floodgate of conversation.
I love that. So parroting is a way to keep the conversation going, but it also deepens the connection.
Exactly. And now let's move beyond listening and talk about the words we actually use.
Okay, so vocabulary. Is this about using bigger, fancier words to sound smarter? Because honestly, that just makes me nervous.
No, not at all. It's not about sounding pretentious. It's about being intentional with your language and choosing words that convey the right tone.
So how do we do that? I mean, I'm not about to memorize a thesaurus.
Don't worry, it's simpler than that. Lowndes suggests picking a few common words you use all the time and looking up their synonyms.
Oh, so instead of saying good, I might say fantastic or impressive.
Exactly. It's about adding a little variety and sophistication to your language without sounding like you're tweaked too hard.
And just a few well-chosen words can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's like adding a little spice to your sentences.
I like that. Now, speaking of spicing things up, Lowndes has this technique called communication, and it's all about putting the listener first.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one. It's so simple, but it makes such a difference.
Okay, tell me more about it. What exactly is communication?
Well, it's about starting sentences with you whenever possible. Instead of saying, I think this is a great idea, you'd say, you might agree that this is a great idea.
Interesting. Why is that so effective? It seems like such a small change.
Psychologically, it taps into something called the pleasure-pain principle. Thinking can be hard work, but when you frame things in terms of you, you're making it easier for the listener.
Oh, that's fascinating. So it's like I'm taking on some of the mental effort for them.
Exactly. And they're more likely to be receptive to your message when it's presented that way.
It's like giving their brain a little break.
And they'll associate those good feelings with you and what you're saying.
That's clever. Okay, before we move on, I have to ask about compliments. Are there any specific techniques for giving compliments that really land well?
Oh, absolutely. Lowndes has a whole section on compliments, and she starts with a technique called accidental adulation. It's about indirectly implying a compliment.
Accidental adulation. Okay, that sounds interesting. Maybe a little sneaky. How does that work?
Let's say you admire someone's outfit. Instead of saying, I love your dress, you could say, I wish I had your sense of style. I always feel so clueless about what to wear.
Oh, I see. So it's like a backhanded compliment, but in a good way.
Exactly. You're highlighting their strength while being self-deprecating. It's playful and indirect, but still conveys your admiration.
That's a good one. And it takes the pressure off being super direct, which can sometimes feel awkward.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, Lowndes talks about the killer compliment, which is designed to make a really lasting impression.
Okay, killer compliment. Sounds intense. What's the secret?
It's about observing a unique quality in someone and delivering a sincere compliment at the end of the conversation. So instead of just saying, you're a great speaker, you might say something like, I was really moved by how you connected with the audience on such a personal level.
So it's about being specific and genuine, not just throwing out generic praise.
Exactly. And delivering it at the end of the conversation makes it linger in their mind.
It's like the cherry on top of a great interaction.
Now, this next one isn't exactly a communication technique, but Lowndes talks about this exercise called the tombstone game.
The tombstone game. Okay, that sounds a little morbid. What's that all about?
Well, it's about self-reflection. She encourages you to think about how you want to be remembered, what legacy you want to leave behind.
Oh, that's deep. It's a reminder that our words and actions really do matter.
And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it's a good opportunity to reflect on how we can use these communication techniques, not just to impress people, but to build genuine connections and make a positive impact.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect segue into part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll explore even more techniques for mastering the art of communication. Okay, so we've uncovered all these awesome communication techniques, from how to talk to anyone.
Yeah, from power poses to killer compliments, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have, but are there ever times when these techniques might not work? Like, are there situations where a different approach is needed?
You know, you bring up a really good point, because Lowndes actually talks about that in the book.
She does.
Yeah, she talks about what she calls safe havens. These are basically times and places where, even in a competitive environment, some topics or approaches are just off limits.
Safe havens, huh? I like that. It implies a certain level of respect and consideration for the situation.
Right, exactly. It's about reading the room and understanding the social dynamics.
So give me some examples. What are some of these safe havens?
Okay, well, one of the most common ones is parties.
Really? Parties. But those are supposed to be social events, right?
They are, but they're primarily for socializing and having fun, not for, like, pushing business agendas or having intense conversations.
So if I see my boss at a party, it's probably not the best time to bring up that promotion I've been wanting.
Probably not. People are there to relax and connect on a more casual level. Bringing up serious topics can just kill the mood.
That makes sense. So parties are a no-go for tough talks. What about other social gatherings, like weddings or family dinners?
Yeah, Lowndes specifically mentions the dinner table as another important safe haven. Whether it's with friends or family, dinner is for enjoying the food and the company, not for hashing out business deals or having heated debates.
Oh, absolutely. No one wants to ruin a perfectly good meal with an argument.
It's about savoring the moment and being present with the people you're with.
Okay, so parties and dinners are off the table. Any other surprising safe havens?
This one might surprise you, but chance encounters, like you bump into someone important at work or in the grocery store.
Oh, yeah, those can be tricky. Do you just pretend you didn't see them?
No. But Lowndes suggests keeping it brief and lighthearted. These encounters are for chit-chat, not for launching into a big pitch or unloading your problems.
That's a good reminder to be mindful of the other person's time. It's not always the right moment for a deep conversation.
Right. You can always schedule a more formal meeting if you need to talk about something important.
So basically, it's all about being respectful of the context and the other person's boundaries.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, there's another technique that I found super helpful, and it's called the pregnant pause.
The pregnant pause. Okay, that sounds interesting. Tell me more.
It's so simple, but powerful. All it involves is pausing for a few seconds after someone finishes speaking before you respond.
Really? Just a few seconds of silence can make a difference.
Oh, a huge difference. First of all, it shows that you're really listening and considering what they said.
Instead of just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it prevents you from interrupting, which can make people feel like they're not being heard.
It gives their words time to sink in.
Right. And that pause also gives you a chance to gather your thoughts and craft a more meaningful response.
So it's not about coming up with a quick comeback or trying to sound clever.
It's about being present and engaging in a more thoughtful way.
That's a great tip. I'm definitely going to try that. Now, while we're on the topic of being thoughtful, Lons also gives some great advice for giving feedback, which can be a really tricky area.
Oh, absolutely. Giving feedback can be so hard. You don't want to offend anyone or make them defensive.
It's a delicate balance for sure. So, what's Lowndes' secret weapon for giving feedback effectively?
She calls it echoing. And it's all about making sure you understand the other person's perspective before you offer your own.
So, like repeating back what they said to make sure you're on the same page.
Exactly. So you might say something like, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated because you haven't had the chance to share your ideas."
It's like you're validating their feelings before offering your own perspective.
Yes, it shows that you're listening and that you care about how they feel.
And that makes them more open to hearing what you have to say.
It shifts the dynamic from being confrontational to collaborative.
That's a really great technique. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else from the book that really stuck with you?
One last thing I want to mention is the idea of starting the applause when someone finishes speaking.
Oh, I love that. It's such a small gesture, but it can really make someone feel appreciated.
It's about being a leader and setting a positive tone.
It's like saying, hey, that was awesome, everyone. Let's give this person a round of applause.
And it creates a more supportive and encouraging environment.
Where people feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and ideas.
Exactly. And, all these techniques that we've talked about, they're not just about impressing people or getting ahead.
It's about connecting with people on a deeper level and building meaningful relationships.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing the power of communication to make a positive impact on the world.
Well said. And this deep dive into how to talk to anyone has been amazing. I've learned so much, and I'm excited to start putting these techniques into practice.
Me too. Remember, communication is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. The more you use these techniques, the more natural and effective they'll become.
So to our listeners, I encourage you to pick a few techniques that resonated with you and give them a try. You might be surprised at the difference they make in your interactions.
And remember, the most important thing is to be yourself. These techniques are just tools to help you express yourself more effectively and connect with others in a more meaningful way.
That's a great reminder. So until next time, keep those conversations flowing, keep learning, and keep connecting.